Hi everybody, it's 2:20 in the morning. Again, can't sleep. Thought I'd get up and just share a bit. The last few days have been quite challenging for me. I have dual addiction, two addictions. But if anything, it's kind of a triple addiction. Most people that are alcoholics, addicts, they have an addictive personality. And so one can be addicted to anything, really, anything. But it just seems to be the main substance for me is alcohol, drugs and food. Food addiction for me has been there ever since I can remember. Mum used to say that even when I was a little girl, just a little bub, she'd just shove the bottle in, I'd drink, go to sleep, wake up, shove the bottle in, I'd go back to sleep again. Mum said it was just, part and parcel of who I was, what I was. Stick the bottle in my mouth and it shut me up. I suppose she just needed quiet kids. But it has always just been there, and it's really hard to share with someone that doesn't have either an addictive personality of some sort or an addiction at all. It's really quite hard to explain what it's like. I suppose the best way I can put it is that I have this yearning inside, and this yearning gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And inside, if I don't suffice whatever that feeling is inside, that feeling gets stronger and stronger. And honestly, sometimes it's like being in what I deem like a slipstream, and it takes me, and occasionally I'll joke with people saying, oh, it's calling my name, it's, Tony, come eat me, and I can have a bit of a joke with people about it, but the reality is I have a food addiction, and I need to be very, very careful, very careful. The best remedy for me when my food addiction is showing or rearing its ugly head is to get back into my training. That always seems to help me, not just on a physical, mental note, but consistency. Consistency is what, it doesn't crush it, it doesn't take it away, but I've got a better chance of walking myself through whatever it is if I can acknowledge what it is. And I'm acknowledging that my food addiction has been calling my name the last few weeks, and it's getting stronger and stronger, and that doesn't mean I'm getting weaker and weaker. It doesn't mean anything like that at all. I used to think that, say if I used alcohol, I'll rephrase that, I'll use alcohol for this particular analogy. I used to think it was being weak if I didn't drink. I used to think I was being really weak if I didn't take those drugs. And it's not exactly the same with food, that I'm weak if I do go ahead and eat that food. Food is, for me, somewhat trickier in the sense that it's everywhere. It's everywhere. I go down the street and there's bloody food shops everywhere. Go grocery shopping, obviously it's a bloody food shop. get petrol. Well, there's food there as well. Doesn't matter what I do, where I go, I visit people, I don't visit people, there's still food there. And to come to terms with that, it's, a bit dicey, very, very dicey. I've met people, and I've done this myself. I've been a binge eater, make myself vomit so I can eat more food, and that is not a nice place to be. It really isn't, especially if I'm in public, if we've gone out for tea or something like that, and I might order, I don't know, whatever I order, and it'll come out the normal size. And then a part of me thinks that's just huge, Tony. How on earth are you going to eat that? But I do. I manage to just get it down, and I'll excuse myself, go to the toilet, bring it up, and then go back and drink water to try and flush through whatever else is in my system. And there's only so many times that one can do that before your throat gets sore or something of a different nature starts really showing through. And it's very, very hard to get away with things like that when you've got 4 little kids. You know, Mum makes herself vomit after lunch. You know, it's dobbed in. Or Nan, do you make yourself vomit after you eat? Mum does. You know, there'd be things like that very innocently said, but it's got that powerful structure within that line. And it's enough for my mum to, Tony, we need to talk. We need to talk and see what's going on. When I lived at home, when I used to go to school, actually, I used to think that I was just this massively overweight person. But when I look back at my pictures, I was a solid person, not a massively overweight, but I was a solid person. I've always done sports, I've always swam, I've always run, softball, t-ball, netball, you name it, I would play the sport. And when I was 12, I was introduced to bodybuilding. My eldest sister asked me if I would like to go to an aerobic class. I think aerobics classes we called them back then in the early 80s. And I spent the whole time standing there just mesmerised with what the men were doing with the weights. And my sister thought I was looking at the men. I said, oh, no, I'm not interested. I said, no, what I want to know is what they're doing and how they do it. So I went and asked the owner of the gym, and he said to me, look, you're a bit young, but he said, I know your family. He said, if you bring a written note from one of your parents, he said, I can keep that. He said, in case something's to happen. He said, that will cover the insurance. He said, if you come here, we worked out what days were most suitable. And he would take me through my first program of bodybuilding when I was 12. And I thought that was absolutely fucking fantastic. I loved it. I ended up being somewhat a gym junkie, and I loved it. I found even on the days that I overate, I still went to the gym. It was obviously a lot easier to go mentally, emotionally, spiritually if I had not or have not overeaten for that day. But it was, I could go in, I learnt to meditate via going to the gym and just breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. And executing the exercise properly. And I suppose I wasn't too bad at it at all. I'm a completely different person when I go into the gym. I'm a straight shooter and I cannot stand dickheads that go into the gym and just be dickheads. I don't stand for it. One of my boys asked me if he could come to the gym with me, and I could show him a few things, and I was more than happy to do that. And he is fucking fantastic at the gym. Fantastic. He's a big boy, not fat, but he's tall, solid. His job very muchly supports that. He is very much like me in the sense that if he's pissed off about something, he can go to the gym and take it out in the gym. And that is just, not everybody gets that. I'm not saying that, look at me, I'm just this fantastic person, or look at my son, he's fantastic because we can do this. I'm not saying that at all. Everyone ends up going to the gym for their own personal reason. Ultimately, it is to exercise. But what I found was that there's a real science in there to be able to eat the appropriate foods and the appropriate amount to be able to sustain a healthy workout, depending if one wants to compete or not. I ended up competing in both bodybuilding and powerlifting, and it really is quite scary and quite daunting, but on the same token, it's a wonderful goal. It really is a wonderful goal. And I spent hours. I'd go to the gym for 2 hours early in the morning, go to work, and then go back to the gym for 2 hours in the afternoon. And I suppose I didn't do too bad because I was selected to represent Australia in the Nationals for powerlifting, and I was picking up a substantial amount of weight. That being said, I ended up having a couple of quite serious accidents in the gym, and unfortunately I didn't get to compete. When I went to my chiropractor, he said, 2 options, Tony. If you want to continue with your bodybuilding or your powerlifting, you'll end up in a wheelchair within 6 to 8 months. He said, but if you want to keep walking, he said, go back to your bodybuilding and lighten up the weights. He said, and chances are you'll walk the rest of your life. Well, it's quite obvious what the greater option was going to be, and I stopped powerlifting, and it was, I can just remember sitting there and watching, because I was in a team, and I would sit there and I would watch the guys train, and I'd sit there and I'd talk with my coach, then coach, and I still see him as my coach today. I just learnt so much from him, and him and himself and his wife are just the loveliest people. And he was very much a straight shooter as well. Anyway, I've kind of gone off track a little bit there, but if I bring it back to my food addiction, and I can't even remember what I was going to use the alcohol for the analogy, but anyway, maybe it'll come to me. That's what it's like when I share sometimes. I just sort of, go into these tangents and just talk. It just feels relevant, so I just talk. Learning about my macros and protein and all that sort of stuff, it has allowed me to somewhat broaden my horizons so that I can I've got a skin condition, a severe skin condition, and I've shared very lightly about it. It's called Sweets syndrome. Basically, I have flu-type symptoms, and I get a measles-type spray of red dots on my skin, and then within the next 24 to 48 hours will tell me whether it's going to go into what I call full bloom, as in blisters, or if it's just going to slowly go away. And 9 times out of 10 it goes into full blister, and the blisters burn. They absolutely burn. But then after the blister goes, I'm left with horrible, horrible scars. I don't know if you've noticed on my chest, I have various spots, white spots on my chest, and that's been from the blisters. It's on my arms, chest, back, legs, my face. I've tried laser treatment to try and soften. The scars will never actually go; they'll always be there. And when I've got all that happening, it's just not very nice. It's not very nice, especially when my food addiction can drag me down to a point of self-hate, and then, I'm left with these bloody awful scars. I remember my youngest son, I think he was about 6 at the time, and he made this really sweet comment to me about my scarring and about my spots. He said, "Mum, why don't you get smiley faces all tattooed into your spots?" And he said, "And then you'll have an armful of smiley faces and you'll be happy." And I thought, God, how cranky am I? But it was just the sweetest little thing that he had said. He was so proud of himself that he'd come up with the idea that he couldn't wait to tell his dad that Mum was going to get an armful of smiley faces. Yeah, God love him. I've got tattoos, but not smiley faces. Maybe I'll get a smiley face one day just to remember it. But, it's allowed me a great focus in my recovery for any of my addictions: alcohol, drugs, food. And with my skin condition, it has allowed me to have varied knowledge about food and various substances in food that I've needed to look at to see if that is what has caused my food addiction. And it's not the substances in the food that has caused it. It was antibiotics. In the erythromycin family, I can't have anything in the erythromycin family of antibiotics because that's what I'm addicted to. That's what I am allergic to, and it causes, my skin condition just to go absolutely bloody haywire. And it is such a horrible, horrible feeling. When I was first diagnosed with it, I was in hospital. Even the muscles in my legs had given way, and I couldn't walk. I was in a wheelchair, and I can remember lying on a bed in emergency, waiting to be taken up to whatever the ward was. And honest to God, this is the handover that was given. There was an elderly lady on one side, and she had severe abdominal pain. And there was a young man on the other side that had taken too many drugs and had gone out and gotten himself into a car accident. And the way this young nurse, her handover was, she pointed to the elderly lady. She's got pains in her stomach. She pointed to me. She said, that's the herpes chick. And she pointed to the young guy and said, he went out, rolled his car and got all banged up. And when I heard what her take on me was, my ears picked up, my voice went up, and my partner, the father of my 4 boys, he was a nurse, and he was in the hospital with me, and I went, what did she just fucking say? And the nurse that had come over to fix me up, to take me upstairs, to put me in the ward, she said, oh, don't you worry. I said, oh, no, I am worried. I said, how dare she make an assumption on what I've got? I said, I have not, nor have I ever had herpes. I said, so how bloody dare she say I'm the herpes chick? My hospital stay was not very nice because that's what I was dubbed, and when the doctors weren't in there, that's what the nurses, or that's what they were calling me at that stage. When my when the specialist came in and took a biopsy and sent it off, and it came back, he said, it's not herpes, Tony, it's not that at all. He said, you've got what's called sweet syndrome. Now, I asked him specifically to write down what that is in my notes, because I had fucking had it up to here with all the comments passed by staff. And I asked to actually see my notes, and the staff said to me, oh, you can't see your notes. And I'm like, well, why not? I know I'm allowed to see my notes. I got to see my notes all right, and I was not very happy, and I bloody wrote. I was not meant to write on it, but I did. I wrote on the notes how disgusted I was and about my stay in hospital. And when I was leaving, the matron just happened to come back from holidays, and she walked into the room and she said, Tony, we haven't met. I said, no, we haven't, have we? And she said, I think we need to have a bit of a chat before you leave. I said, you think? I said, fucking oath, we need to have a chat before I leave. I said, I am so disgusted with the staff. I said, not just how they've treated me. I said, but how they've treated other people. I said, and that radio that sits out there on that, the handrail, I said, the handrail is not there for the radio, love. I said, and you're telling me, this is in the conversation, and you're telling me that you've made a decision to put the radio on to try and bolster the staff morale. I said, if I was management, because I've been in management, I said, if I had to put the radio on to bolster my staff's morale, they'd be fucking sacked. I said, because that's not what it's for. The handle out there, the handlebar out there is not there for the bloody radio. I said, the handlebars out there are for people that are unwell or disability, not for bloody radio. Because every time one of the doctors or specialists would come in, I'd hear the nurses running around, heads up, you know, doctors are here, radio's got to be put away. And they put the bloody thing away, and as soon as the doctor walked out, the friggin' radio had come back. Anyway, I've really gone off my subject this evening. Back to the food. I needed to go through an extenuous process of which food triggered, and thank God I knew a certain amount of knowledge about food with my bodybuilding and powerlifting, because I can honestly tell you it wasn't a food that triggered it. It was these antibiotics that actually triggered it. And I end up going to a couple of specialists, and the first thing they said was, well, we've got to figure out what food it is. And I would say to them, well, it's not about the food. And how would you know? That was them saying it to me. And how would you know? Because I've done bodybuilding since I was 12. And, you know, I'm 35. I was 35 when I was diagnosed with it. And so, you know, I'd already had over 20 years of experience when it came to food. And, yeah, some people can be exceedingly arrogant if they don't know that you've got a certain amount of knowledge. But oh my God, are they fucking arrogant when you tell them you have a certain amount of knowledge. It becomes a competition, and that's not what I want. I don't want a competition with bloody who knows more about food. I'd like to find out why, and more knowledge about these blisters, because I've got a body full of scarring that I cannot do a damn thing about. I've spoken to several different people about them, and I can't do anything about the silver scars. That just goes to show how deep the scarring actually goes, and yeah, and how painful this particular, what can I call it, disease, I don't know. It's an autoimmune issue, and even at the age of 57, I still have issues with it. And it seems to be triggered. I don't know if it's just because I'm older, but I've realised that being an autoimmune issue, it seems to be triggered when I am quite, my nerves are really, anxiety, and when everything is skyrocketing in that area is when my skin condition just flares up. It flares up. Anyway, again, coming back to my food addiction, I'm quite happy to say that I'm very much aware now, and I've needed to grow to a point to be aware of when my food addiction is playing games with me. And that might sound a little bit crazy, a little bit seedy, I don't know. And I hope it doesn't sound arrogant, because it's definitely not about arrogance. I need to stay aware of where I'm at physically, mentally, emotionally, especially when it comes to the food. It is the strongest of all my addictions, and some days it takes me, I can't grasp it, and it takes me. Yeah, it's not a nice addiction to have. You've only got to listen to some people share things on the internet about the food, and it's horrendous. It really is horrendous. There are some people that, 600 pounds, and I think, wow, I've escaped somewhat. I was going to say something else then, I can't remember what. But some people, how their food addiction affects them and where their food addiction can take them. And 600 pounds is part of that. And my heart just goes out to these people. When I say these people, I'm not meaning that they are something different or, they're human beings. They are human beings with feelings and emotions, and sometimes they just can't stop. They just can't stop overeating. And I've had plenty of days like that I just have not been able to stop overeating. I couldn't tell you how many days I've needed to leave work with a bag full of food or with some money and go straight to another supermarket and get food and go home and stuff myself senseless with food. It took a long time to find some kind of control over it. And honestly, to be able to go to the gym, it helped me immensely. It really did help me immensely. And that's the first suggestion I make to anybody that is seeking help for a food addiction, is to try and go to the gym. Not everybody wants to, and that's okay. It doesn't suit everybody. It was something that I needed to do for me. Firstly, it was for my food addiction, and then as the alcohol and the drugs got more and more prevalent, I went harder at the gym. If anything, I got a lot stronger, both in my mind, physically, mentally, emotionally. But the bottom line is, it's another addiction. It's another addiction. And I have not been as open with my food addiction as I have been with my alcohol and drugs. To a degree, food addiction is somewhat more accepted than alcohol and drugs. I'm not saying that's a blanket statement, because it's not a blanket statement. Some people may be fortunate enough to have just one addiction, and that might just be food. Other people might have 2 or 3 addictive substances. For me, that's me, alcohol, drugs and food. And when I was younger, if all 3 of them were rearing their ugly heads, I was a bloody mess, absolute fucking mess. I'd, smoke cones to get the munchies so then I could eat more food, and then I'd make myself sick so then I could eat more food, but I'd smoke more cones because I'd enjoy the food more, because I'd have the munchies. Food tastes really good when you got munchies. By the grace of God, I've not had a drink or a drug since I was 25. I went through rehab at 25. with my food addiction, because it seemed so much more accepted society-wise, it's been somewhat different food-wise, somewhat different. And I know I can go to the gym absolutely craving food, and somewhere along the line, I can be lifting a certain weight and meditating through this lifting, and something will just pop up. Something will just rear its ugly head. It could be why I'm wanting to overeat. It might not be why I'm wanting to overeat. There's just so much in there. There truly is just so much in there. And I could probably sit for days upon days and talk food addiction. I don't want to. I think I was 18 at my first Overeaters Anonymous meeting, and then 19 at my first AA meeting. And it was such a hard slog to figure out what I wanted. I'm probably going to sound like I'm getting all confused here, but if how am I going to share this and, hopefully have it make sense? I could go to an NA meeting. Somehow I was accepted there or acceptable there that I would talk about my food addiction. I could not go to an AA meeting and talk about my food addiction. AA and NA, even though, yes, based upon the same program, there's a lot of varied personalities there, shall we say. And each, Alcoholics Anonymous is for alcohol, Narcotics Anonymous is for narcotics, and Overeaters Anonymous is for overeating. And I just sit in the middle there somewhere. I'm just little old me. I just sit in the middle there somewhere, and try and find some kind of normality in the middle there somewhere. I needed to stop writing dates down, stop having a start-stop day, stop trying to control so much all the food. I really, really wanted to stop. I really, really needed some form of control. And the lines are somewhat more blurred with food because it's more socially acceptable. Not so much with the alcohol and the drugs. It's not so much socially acceptable, especially when I don't know how to stop when it comes to the food and when it comes to drugs. My buckle is none of stopping there, so I just don't start. With my food addiction, I've been up and down the scales. I always thought I was the only one in the world that had 4 different sizes in my wardrobe, only to find that there's, umpteen thousands of other people that have got the same thing as well. I've really needed to work hard on just letting go, learning to just let my food addiction go, and try and just sit there. Try and just sit there and endure. And what I mean by endure, I mean as in feeling the feelings and not overeat while I'm at it. And that's fucking hard. It can be very, very fucking hard. I've been, a size 10 and gone along to an Overeaters Anonymous meeting, and I've had women look at me and go, "Why are you here? You're a size 10 for fuck's sake." And they weren't being rude or anything. That's just how it was. I might go back 3 months later and I'm a size 16. I've just needed to learn to, work with my food addiction in a way that supported my alcohol and drug addiction. It's hard. It can absolutely fuck with my brain at the best of times. And I'm not sorry for swearing there. I'm not. I can hear my dog in the background there. I think it needs to go to the toilet. I'll take a small break and I'll come back.